I was taught that I would fail. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artist at Play. Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a little bit different. I am going to be having a pretty frank conversation about my life, what led me to art, and how art pretty much saved me. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the piece that I'm working on here. This is a recent colored pencil commission piece that I did of some fireweed flowers. And I got the reference photo from Pixabay. I think the reference is by Eric Lingso. I think that's how it's pronounced. I will link that in the description below if you are curious about the reference photo. But basically, I switched things around a little bit. I changed the format, like I flipped the flower, and I changed out the background completely because the original background had a lot of browns and tans, but I wanted green to make the reds and the pinks in the flowers pop. And I'm using various brands of colored pencils, mostly because it's hard to find some good light fast pinks, but I'm using a lot of Holbein, Prismacolor, Polychromos, some Soho, and some Koh-i-Noor colored pencils as well in this. And so you'll see me switching back and forth there. And basically, I'm just doing the bokeh background and then doing the flower more in focus. Okay, so let's get back to the topic of this video. And before I get into anything, I do want to kind of give you a trigger warning. This conversation is going to involve some talk about bullying, about depression, and about CPTSD. So if that is something that you don't feel like you are in the right headspace to listen to, please feel free to go watch one of my other videos. They're all very much more upbeat than this. I have been wanting to do this video for a very long time, but I didn't know how to approach it, and I'm still not quite sure how to approach it. But I think it's important to have this conversation because I think it's important to give you some insight into who I am and just kind of give you a bigger overview of what I'm doing here on the channel, because I think it's really easy when you're on the internet to think that the people that you are watching have it so great and have it so wonderful. And it's really hard if you're in a hard place to see other people that seem to be very successful, and sometimes it can make you feel down about yourself. And I get like that sometimes too. I think it's really natural. But it's important to know that everybody behind the camera is a real person and we all have our own story. But the bigger reason why I want to share this story is to let you know that if you are in a bad place in your life, you're not necessarily always going to be there. You don't have to stay there. And so that's the ultimate reason why I decided to share my story. I'm still not going to get too detailed just because it is my life. It is private, but I just kind of wanted to let you know that life may seem hard sometimes, but it doesn't always stay there. So let's kind of get into it. I am somebody who grew up in my most formative years. I was poor. My family was poor. We lived in a trailer park, and my mom worked a lot, and she had 3 kids, and we struggled. And I was somebody who was born, I swear I was born with an anxiety attack. Like, I have always been a very nervous child, and I was a very small child, and very underweight, not because I wasn't fed necessarily or anything like that, but more just kind of my stature. I think I get it from my dad. And I went to a small school where everybody knew everybody. And because of that, I was kind of bullied quite a lot in my younger years because I was poor and I was small. And pretty much anybody who lived in my trailer park was bullied. And to be fair, the trailer park that I lived in was not that bad as far as trailer parks go. It was a kind of a nice place to grow up. We had a lot of space to play, and we spent a lot of time outside. It was the 90s. The internet didn't really exist then. So once we got home, we could be outside. We actually were outside all the time because it was the 90s. And so there was plenty of places to play. And so I do have some happy memories from those times. But my home life itself wasn't that great, and my school life wasn't that great. And that kind of stays with you. I don't think people really emphasize enough how much that stays with you, even throughout your adult years. And About the age of 12 is when we moved and we lived in a nicer house, but even then I learned that money doesn't buy happiness, because that doesn't always mean that you have a nice life. And so I dealt with a lot of negative situations in my early childhood and in my teens as well. And one thing that I always had was art. Even when I was in my school, when I was really young, I was known as the art girl. The one time people paid attention to me was when I drew something. The one time people were really nice to me and made me feel like I mattered is when I drew something. And so that is something that I think stuck with me. I was already, I had the passion for art from a very young age, as many of us do. I always wanted to be an artist. I remember even in kindergarten, even before getting any real, crazy positive attention for the art, I just was drawn to creating. I knew I wanted to create beautiful pictures for a living. And so that helped. It helped that I had that passion. A lot of the kids that I grew up with ended up getting into drugs, going to jail, and having just generally, they had a hard time getting away from the negativity that they grew up in. And I was very fortunate that art basically was my drug. And it's something that made me feel like I was special and gave me drive and gave me a reason not to try drugs, because I wanted to be able to continue creating art to the capacity that I was creating art. And it really helped me through the negativity. And I don't know I know that it's been proven that art is very therapeutic. And so I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but it definitely helped me through some of the worst parts of my life. And I have to say that I was taught that I would fail, especially in my younger years. When you don't come from a lot of money, it's already assumed that you're just going to grow up to be a dirtbag. And it's a society thing. And I feel like when I was really young, a lot of the adults in my life failed me because they treated me that way as well. And I am somebody who, thankfully, I got through that. I pushed through it because I knew that once I became an adult, I could make my life whatever I wanted it to be. And I realized that's an oversimplification, and I was fortunate enough that I could tell myself to keep moving forward, and that I knew that change was inevitable and I wouldn't be there forever. But I know that not everybody's that fortunate to have that mindset, and I know that what worked for me won't necessarily work for anybody else, but this is my story, and this is what helped me when I was going through those times. Because obviously growing up like that leads to having some pretty negative friendships and romantic relationships that may lead to some abuse and things like that. And so it can be hard to get away from that negativity, but it can be done. And I'm saying all of this to you now because I am somebody who, even though I was taught I would fail, I had this gift, and I felt like I owed it to this gift to see it through. And I used all that drive to jump right into my art. And honestly, art was an escape for me, and it still kind of is, which is why I like to create positive, uplifting images. I think that it's important for each of us to have something. And even if you don't know what that thing is, know that you are worth it and push through. And I'm sharing this with you today because I am somebody who, I have a lot of art supplies now. I'm making good money off of my artwork. When I'm selling my artwork, I'm able to get some pretty good income from that artwork. I am building my YouTube channel. It's not the biggest YouTube channel out there yet. I don't want it to be the biggest YouTube channel, but I've been, slowly growing my audience, and I have a core group of people who are with me all the time. So shout out to all of you. I'm very appreciative of my regulars who are always in my comment section and always supportive of me and my work. Maybe because I didn't have a lot of money growing up. I started with Q-tips and little fake watercolors, and I would create sculptures out of, ground clay, anything I could get my hands on to create. My dad's friend owned a salvage yard. I was always creating things out of literal junk. Any way that I could create, I was creating. And so I think in that way, it makes you more innovative. I always say that, and me and my sisters talk about that. Growing up poor kind of makes you innovative. You are going to be creative because you have to find creative solutions to problems that you don't have the money to fix. And so in that way, I was very fortunate. But I just want to put that out there because of the fact that right now, yes, I have a ton of art supplies. I worked very hard to get to where I am. I work very hard at my day job. I work very hard at my YouTube and at my art in general. And so there are times, people may see my studio and may see the amount of art supplies I have, and I don't want them to ever feel bad about themselves because it wasn't always this way for me either. It took a very long time to get to where I am in my life. I now have a college degree in art. I have a very wonderful, supportive husband, and I have a good paying job that helps me do this. And I'm also fortunate enough to be able to make some money with my art as well so that I can do this. But none of this was a given for me. And I was even told that I wouldn't even make it this far when I was growing up. It was not always that way for me. And I'm betting that it was not always that way for some of the other people that you watch on YouTube either. And yes, there are a few people who maybe they were lucky and they had that support right from the get-go and they hit the ground running. But a lot of us had to work our way up there, and it was not quick. It's not quick. I'm still working. Obviously I have a day job, so I'm not working art full time, but it takes a lot of years sometimes to get there. And especially when you're battling your own past and you're trying to come away from where you grew up and make something different of yourself and not just stay there, it takes a lot of digging your way out of that hole that you didn't choose to be in to begin with. And I'm just here to tell you that it can be done. I see a lot of people, a lot of comments online saying, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could afford this. And I understand that. And I feel for those people because I've been there. And to that, I say, create with whatever you have on hand, because that's how many of us started. Like I said, I didn't always have access to supplies. I created with mud, basically, out of streams in the backyard. And I would draw in the dirt if I had to. I used my dad's carpenter pencils a lot on lined paper. I used to use the back of beer cartons and draw on those, the cardboard side. Anything I could get my hands on. As long as you're creating and as long as you're feeding your soul, and as long as you are giving yourself that chance to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to tell you that there's something wrong with you. Because that is the toughest part. Like I said, I was taught I wouldn't succeed. Even those who supported me in my art, which I am very thankful, I did have adults in my life who supported my art, but there was always the caveat that you can't make a living at that. It's the same old starving artist. Have a backup plan. You'll never be, and that's part of the reason why, I do have a backup plan. That's why I'm still working my day job, but there are many, many, many successful artists right here on this platform who are making a living at it. I am on my way to making a living at it. It can be done. And so I feel very successful compared to where I come from. I love my art. I love who I am as a person. I have found a very great core group of friends, and I have found a wonderful support system here on the internet with my art friends who share in their love of art supplies and in their knowledge and their expertise. And I really appreciate the support that I have here on the channel. And I don't want pity, because I don't pity myself. I think I'm a very strong person for the things that I've gone through, and I only touched a little bit on my life here, but I think it's enough to paint a picture to show you that I have this beautiful studio now, and I may have a lot of art supplies and do a lot of art hauls and be fortunate enough to work with some very wonderful companies to review their supplies, but that's not where I came from. And I made it here despite where I came from, and you can too. So basically the main takeaway of this is, even if everybody else in your life is not supporting you, don't give up on yourself. You will find the right people that resonate with you when you become authentically yourself, and when you put the work in yourself and you put the faith in yourself to keep going. And I am not a psychiatrist or anything like that. I'm just somebody who's been there. And I know it's easier said than done, but I just am here to say that it can be done, because I am proof that it can be done. I didn't always do great in my schoolwork when I was really young because of my life. Like, it was very hard to be focused on schoolwork. But in my later years, I was able to knock it out of the park. You know, all these things that people tell you you can't do, you can prove them wrong. And a lot of what I've done is prove some very negative people from my past wrong. And also the few people that really did support me, I've done it for them as well. But mostly I did it for me, because despite where I come from, I deserve happiness. We all do. And I'm very happy with where I am now. And I'm very happy that I can share what I know and all the knowledge that I've taught myself and all the knowledge that I did learn later in life when I finally did go to school. And I am glad that I can be here with you folks and interact with one another and have a place to share my love for art with other artists. So thank you all for that. And thank you for listening. This was a very strange video, but I hope it resonates with some of you. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. I'm sorry that this was kind of a depressing topic, but I hope that you walk away feeling empowered by my message. And I will see you next week. You have a fantastic day. Bye. If you found value in this video, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you can see more videos like it. Thank you.